Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to sew a bowl cozy. So this is what a bowl cozy looks like. You can use it for the microwave and to hold your bowls when it's too hot or it's too cold. I use two types of fabrics. Both are cotton and one is in an aerial print and the back side is a pink polka dot. So for supplies, what you'll need is cotton batting. You don't want to use polyester because you are going to place it in the microwave. Any type of fabric you want. I use two different types of print. That's just another option. What you'll also need is a cutter. You can use scissors or what I'm using there. Some type of drawing tool, so chalk, binding clips, or pins, and any ruler. This ruler that I'm showing you right now is already measured at 10.5 by 10.5, which is perfect because that's the size that you want to cut your fabric out. So excuse my arm, I normally don't cut that way, but the camera was in my way, so I'm just cutting it down. And again, you'll cut two pieces of the cotton fabric, 10.5 by 10.5. And then for the cotton batting, you'll notice it's slightly smaller, and that I cut at about 10 by 10. Once you've cut all three pieces, what you'll do is take your fabric and flip it pretty side down and place the cotton batting on top of that. Smooth it down and pin each corner. Once you've pinned each corner, what you'll want to do is fold it in half, and I'll show you that in a couple of seconds here. Then you're going to take your ruler and you're going to measure out. But before you do that, line up your corners, and I use a binder clip just to make sure that it's secure. You can also use a pin if you don't have a binder clip. So now I'm measuring out to make the darts, and I'm using that smaller ruler that I showed earlier and the chalk. And you're going to measure out 3/4 of an inch, and you're going to mark that on top of the cotton batting. So you'll see I just measured that out there. Mark it, and then what you're going to do is measure 3 inches out, and then mark that. Once you've marked that, what you'll do is basically connect the dots, or connect the lines, your marks in this case. And you'll see I just drew a really faint line there. And you'll repeat that step on the opposite side of your fabric. That's how it looks. Then what we're going to do is take your binding clip out and fold it the other way. So the way you can tell is you have your darts at the top and on the other side. Repeat the same steps on both ends, 3/4 of an inch and 3 inches out. Mark it and connect the line. You don't have to use the chalk pen. You can also use like the invisible marker, I think that's what it's called. I tend to use the chalk because if I'm not fast enough, the ink disappears, or disappeared ink. This is what it looks like once you've drawn everything. Those are for your darts that you are going to sew. You're going to repeat these steps for the other side of the fabric as well. Measuring 3 inches out and 3/4 of an inch up. Connect the lines. And if you're going to ask me where I purchased these ruler, I got it at a set at Joann Fabrics. I know Hobby Lobby also sells it. And I'm just showing you there that that's where you're going to sew, and that's the purpose of those lines. Now take it to your sewing machine and you are going to start sewing. I'm using polyester thread. It's okay to use in the microwave, but you can also use cotton thread as well. To start your sewing, you should back stitch it. And if you want, you can double stitch it as well, just to make it a little more secure. All of the materials will be listed in the description, and also the steps and measurements as well. And you'll see that I'm back stitching it at both ends as well. And like I said, if you want to make it sturdy, you can stitch it twice. Just repeat this step for the other end as well. And you're going to basically do this 4 times for each piece of fabric. So you'll notice one side of the fabric does not have a cotton batting, whereas the other one does. Once you've sewn the 2 sides, that's what the darting looks like. Fold it over, and what you'll do is take one corner and match it up just to make sure that everything is aligned. And I used a binding clip just to secure it. And again, just stitch it and don't forget to backstitch. And cut your loose threads there. Once you've done that, what you'll want to do is trim that excess off. So this is going to remove any bulkiness to your bowl cozy. And I've opened that out and I've ironed down the seams, or you can use your finger or a bone folder or a seam folder. Fingernails work just fine, and I would not suggest using an iron on top of the sewing machine, but my camera was a little weird to move around, so I was lazy. Once you've done that, you're just going to repeat the steps on the other side as well with the other batting. Then once you've sewn that, you're going to place pretty side to pretty side, and you are going to take one corner, line it up on the edges, and pin it. Line at the edge and pin. And I didn't show you how I sewed the batting to the other piece of fabric because you're basically repeating that first step that I showed you. Then once you've done that, what you'll want to do is mark off a little opening and then sew all around the edge. And you can use whatever seam allowance you want. Sometimes I go 1/2 inch, I go 1/4 inch, I do 1 inch, it just all depends. Go slow when you're going around where that corner I'm showing you, that spot, because you don't want to break your needle. But make sure you backstitch at the very beginning as well. Once you get to the corner, make sure your needle is down, pivot your fabric, and then just keep on sewing around all 4 edges, but make sure you leave that opening where I marked with a binding clip. And in terms of the opening size, that's going to be up to you. I don't measure it. I know some of you may, but my hand tends to fit. Otherwise, I use a chopstick to turn it inside out. And go slow around that part right there, as you'll notice, because it's bulky and you don't want to break your needle. So once I pivot there, I'm going to go ahead and stop where that binding clip is, back stitch it again, stitch it again because I just want to be safe. And then you pull it out, cut the excess needle, and there's that opening. You'll want to trim all of the excess. I create a notch so that I can fold that in and sew over it. And now I'm just cutting, clipping the corners to reduce the bulkiness, and basically trimming all of the excess fabric around the bowl cozy. And never use scissors that you don't use for fabric. So once you've cut all of the sides, not including that excess fabric where you have an opening, as you can see there, you'll want to remove your pins and start to turn it inside out. You can use a toothpick to push out the corners, but just be careful when you're using a toothpick, chopstick, not a toothpick, a chopstick. And you'll see I'm using a chopstick or a very large toothpick and just pushing out the corners, and then I folded in that excess fabric there, ironed it down, and then now you're going to top stitch around the bowl cozy. Make sure you back stitch as well. Then what you're going to do is top stitch around all 4 corners, and then you're going to top stitch basically an X. And the reason you're doing that is when you go to wash it, it doesn't separate the batting and the 2 pieces of fabric. And you'll see all I did was pivot my fabric, and I'm just going slowly, making sure that the fabric is not bunched, and sewing it diagonally. And you'll do that twice to create an X. And don't forget to backstitch. Very important. So once it's done, you'll want to trim all of that excess thread, flip it. I tend to iron it down, and there is your bowl cozy. Again, you can put it in the microwave. Just make sure you do not use any fabric that has metallic. You have to use 100% cotton fabric and make sure that the batting on the inside is cotton as well. So it's giveaway time. So one of you will win this Ariel bowl cozy. Just see the description for giveaway rules. Thanks everyone for watching.